Hello and welcome to the third video, which is entitled Understanding the Learning Process. This is the final video dealing with the reasons or excuses why we put off revising till the last minute, or why we just don't revise. This is the first reason why people tank their exams, which is lack of revision. The reasons or excuses that I'm dealing with today is, what's the point? I already know the subject matter. Or teacher said I'll get good grades, so I'm set. The two are very closely related. And the other reason or excuse is, why bother? I'll only forget it again, so I shouldn't revise until the last minute. Have you ever noticed how in class some people seem to pick up the concepts straight away, while others just can't seem to get it no matter how hard they try? This can lead to the belief that some people are just more naturally talented than others. In truth, though, I believe the error is that we assume that everyone is starting from the same position. Some people may grasp the concepts easily because all the prerequisites are in place, whereas those who struggle are missing some key concepts. In mathematics, just like any other subject, harder topics build on simpler ones, and those who skipped or failed to properly grasp the simpler topics will struggle a lot with the harder topics. For example, people who didn't quite get things like order of operations and couldn't see the point of it, so they might have glossed over it or improperly learned it. They'll then have difficulty picking up some key algebraic concepts further down the road. So, why do some people forget or improperly learn some of the basic building blocks? Well, it could be down to the fact that they missed the class and didn't have any notes and couldn't copy notes off someone else, or they weren't paying attention, or it could be down to the teacher failing to teach it properly, but often it's down to the deceitfulness of the learning process. Most things are extremely simple when they're being explained, and it's very easy to leave a class thinking you understand the lesson. Again, when you read a textbook or watch a video lesson on the subject, it's easy to be fooled into thinking you understand the subject. The only way to break this delusion is to try out some questions for yourself, or better yet, try to teach the subject to someone else. You really find out how little you understand a subject when you're trying to teach someone and they ask questions that you can't answer. Okay, for the brain to be able to process information, brain cells have to transmit electrochemical signals from one neuron to another. Our brain is just basically a mass of nerve cells or neurons. In order to transmit signals from one neuron to another, the brain sends electrical signals down the length of the nerve, and then there's a gap called a synapse or synapse. For a signal to jump these gaps, chemicals called neurotransmitters are emitted, which bridge the synapse, and they're received by the other neuron, which then sends an electrical signal down the length of that neuron, where another neurotransmitter is released to bridge yet another gap to yet another neuron. After a long time, these receptors can become temporarily blocked, or the transmitters can be temporarily exhausted. Either way, when this happens, you find it increasingly difficult to read, digest and assimilate new information. There comes a point called diminishing returns, where the more effort you put into trying to learn, the less you are actually able to learn. This is why leaving revision to the last minute and trying to cram loads of stuff in at once just doesn't work. Okay, it's still better than no revision at all, but it really is an inferior choice to revising little and often and starting revising early. However, if you start revising months before the exams and you revise little and often, not only do you find revision much more tolerable, but the brain actually physically remodels itself. Basically, neurons grow closer together, making the neural pathways stronger and the knowledge that you've put into it even stronger. You know when this happens because through practice, that which started off as impossible moves to achievable and then to easy and finally to obvious, at which point you struggle to understand how anyone could have ever had difficulty with the concept in the first place. Okay, well, just because you think you know a subject doesn't mean you actually know the subject. This is why revision is so very important. Testing yourself regularly and working through lots of problems is a much better way of learning than simply reading the notes and textbooks or watching instructional videos over and over and over and over again. Reading your notes or textbooks or watching instructional videos once and then testing yourself over and over again is a much better approach than watching those videos or textbooks or whatever lots of times. Also, don't just look at a question and decide you can't do it and then look up the answer straight away. Really struggle to wrap your head around it, only looking for instructional videos or textbook entries when you've really tried to understand it for yourself. That way you can see where your thoughts were on the right track and where you went wrong. If you just go straight to the textbook or video, you run the risk of falling prey once again to the deceitfulness of the learning process. The reason for this deceitfulness is that the brain actually has two different kinds of memory. We sometimes think of this as short-term memory and long-term memory. Short-term memory is sometimes called working memory. In computer terminology, short-term memory is akin to random access memory, which is very volatile. The information is easily accessed, true, but it's also very easily lost. When we learn something new, our working memory very quickly and easily grasps the concept, allowing us to follow the teacher and work through examples. However, the memory is quickly lost, and chances are, if you have, say, geography straight after maths, by the time you've finished geography, and for some people by the time they've taken their seats in geography, they've already forgotten some or much of what they learned in maths. That's because the information was in their working memory, not in their long-term memory. To move information from working memory to long-term memory means that knowledge has to be accessed repeatedly. This is why doing loads and loads of questions and revising as often as possible is so very important. A key to moving information from short-term to long-term memory is called spaced repetition. Practicing the concept as soon as possible after learning them while some of the information is still in working memory, then shortly afterwards practicing again, each time slightly increasing the time span between practicing the concepts. Now, there's three key takeaways from this. One, the best kind of revision is when you start revising early, and then revise little and often, and lastly, test your knowledge with questions regularly. Okay, well, that's just about covers the concepts of why people put off doing their revision and the issue of lack of revision. So that's pretty much all we've got for that, except I can't finish a video on revision without mentioning study groups. There's no mistaking that teams are usually great. Often we work better as a group, but that's only true if the group is functional. For some people, and in some rare circumstances, you really are better off going it alone, but we've already covered techniques for revising on your own. So the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to revision is the benefits of revising as a group. Every now and then, no matter how many self-motivation techniques you try or how many books you read or examples you practice, it's just not possible to motivate yourself to do something that you know needs doing, or it's just not sinking in, and guess what? You're not alone. Others will be struggling with similar issues. Sometimes we just need a fresh pair of eyes or a fresh outlook. Revising with a friend means you have someone to motivate you, and it's always easier to motivate someone else than it is to motivate yourself. Also, the fear of letting someone else down is a pretty powerful motivator. Most people in a class have mates, and frankly, What's the point of having mates if you don't make use of them? Now, if you really don't have mates, and some people really are socially awkward and they struggle to make friends, and if that's true for you, then I'm going to do a set of videos on how to make friends and how to form groups, and maybe even how to lead a study group if you find yourself in that situation. But at the moment I'm going to assume that you are sociable, and if you're not very sociable, then I will do some videos later on for you. But let's start off with the assumption that you are sociable. So team up with other people and work together. Now, everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and if someone else's strengths can help you overcome your weaknesses, and your strengths can help someone overcome their weaknesses, then together you're stronger. You know, some of those friends and family members who were a distraction, maybe you can rope them into helping you study. You know, can't hurt to ask. Don't let other people fool you though by saying you'll be on your own in the exam, you can't rely on your friends then, so you should practice revising on your own. Well, yeah, that's all well and good, but you're not in an exam right now. And if you're struggling to open the books and hit the questions, why not have other people in your life help you with your revision? Remember the golden rule, any revision is still better than no revision. Sometimes though, studying with friends is not always best for you. If you're in a study group that spends so much time socialising that the studying isn't actually getting done, then leave that dysfunctional group and find one that works for you. Again, if you find that you're the one that's carrying the whole group, you generally might be better off cutting them loose so that they can fail on their own without having to drag you down with them. Mind you, every group needs a leader, and if you find yourself in that role, then that's good, so long as the rest of the group are pulling their weight. If one or more members of the group really aren't trying, then don't let them demoralise the rest of the group. Warn them gently to start pulling their weight, and if they don't, exclude them from the group before they drag everyone else down. I know it sounds ruthless, but it's good for them and it's good for the group. You may find that they come back much more humble, and given a second chance, they will take their studies much more seriously, and that can improve their grades and the rest of the groups. And if they don't take their studies seriously, it's still better that they fail on their own than cause everyone else in the group to fail. If you're building a study group, I recommend a small group, no more than about 5 people. The larger the group, the more chance there is that people will turn up late and be chatting with each other and get distracted. There'll be so much socialisation going on that there'll be a lot less time for actual studies. Keep your groups small and manageable. You don't even need to meet up in person these days. You can meet up online and work together over email, Skype, Facebook, etc. But however you choose to revise, I would like to wish you every success with your exams. Now, in the next series of videos, I'll be looking at the second reason why people can sometimes choke on their exams, even if they have done their revision.